Welcome back to Lean Into Leadership, where we lead the conversation about anything and everything leadership related. On today's episode, Brooke Gordon joins the show. Hey everyone, welcome back to Leadership in 20. We got another great episode for you today. Brandon Skiles here today. I'm joined with
Mello here today.
And Brooke.
All right, Brooke. So we're going to jump right into it. First question is, who are you? You can answer it however way you want.
Wow, starting with a really big one. A way that I can take it however I want. Well, my name is Brooke. I guess I already said that, but I'm a senior here at Central. I am a leadership advancement scholar. My home is a volunteer center where I'm a student coordinator for the Alternative Breaks program. I found great community within civic engagement work as well as service learning. And I love CMU so much I want to stay here for the rest of my life. So I'm going into higher ed student affairs after I graduate this spring. I'm really excited to be here. Yeah.
That's cool. So I guess a little mini question within that question. What made you pick Central?
I'm going to be really honest. I was the leadership advancement scholarship just because I knew a lot of people from my high school that were also in the program. And I just knew that it was going to be a great way to continue to not only build myself as a leader, but engage in a really, really cool community. So yeah.
That's cool. Yeah. You talked about alternative breaks. Do you mind describing that to anyone who's viewing that doesn't know what that is? 'Cause I know you're really passionate about it.
Yeah.
It's a really cool thing. You do a lot within AB, as also we call alternative breaks is the acronym. But yeah, you want to jump into that a little bit?
Yeah. So Alternative Breaks is an organization that is present within a lot of different higher education institutions. But our mission statement here at Central is through service learning experiences, whether that's hyperlocal or week-long direct service experiences pertaining to various social justice issues, we provide students that opportunity to engage in service, but also make that meaning afterward through reflection and other forms of education. So with our week-longs, we have 8 weekly meetings prior to the break where students are able to learn about the social issue in which they're going to be serving with, but they're also able to build community with the other participants on the break. And yeah, it's a little AB blurb.
Awesome. You've been on a lot. Do you have a favorite experience, like favorite location or social justice issue that you got to participate in throughout your time at CMU?
Something that we touch on a lot within the Alternative Breaks program is that every single social issue, even if I'm going to serve for food insecurity, I'm also going to serve and benefit education or supporting children or leadership and sustainability. So picking a favorite break is a very difficult thing because as for social issues, they're all so deeply interconnected that they're all kind of working within each other in a way. I've been on 4 or 5 now. Site led for them. It's kind of like picking a favorite kid, so it's a very difficult thing to do. And all alternative breaks are great. But I'm not going to cop out and say that I'm not going to pick a favorite. But today's favorite is going to be Arts and Activism, which was my first alternative break I went on as a participant. And through that, we did different organizational efforts for Arts at Large, which is a nonprofit in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, to provide students, young people, middle-aged people, families, whoever in the community, access to not only art, but access to music and access to other forms of recreation. And so I thought it was really cool for me to, that was the first time I really felt like I was in the correct place in my college career. And so that break always has a special place in my heart. So.
Awesome. All right, pass it back to Mello here.
So that last part you said, that was your sense of belonging, right? Mm-hmm. And something just sparked in you, right?
Yeah, I think a lot of times people, when they enter college, they don't I think that a lot of times with involvement, students go directly to what they did in high school because it's a comfort zone thing. Where when you look at like transitioning of students from high school to college, that comfort zone is something that students should 100% lean into in regards to involvement. But I felt like through alternative breaks, I wasn't super, like I volunteered in high school, but kind of because I had to, being super candid, like through NHS, through other like organizations, like I just felt like I had to, and it was like the social obligation to do so. And I am very, very thankful that I was able to get involved in alternative breaks because of their deep-rooted education into the service as well, where in high school I didn't have that educational component, so I felt like I was kind of going through the motions almost and not fully understanding what I was doing for a community other than the fact that I was helping, but rather how can I move that into different activism efforts and advocacy in other ways. And I thought that was a very cool feeling for me to have as a fall semester of sophomore year, where I was like, this is my jam, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. And I've always cared about advocacy in different ways, but volunteering and engaging in service is also a form of advocacy.
I was also going to say, you said what a lot of our guests have said, where they were involved in high school, but it wasn't until they came off to, college, university, where they were like, well, actually, maybe I want to do something else, or like, do I stay in my comfort zone and do those same things that I've done already? And I feel like for everyone who's come, they've always said like they found something else that really honed in on what they wanted to do and kind of gave them that sense of belonging. So thank you for sharing that, for real.
Yeah. And I think that's college, right? Like if you stay in your comfort zone and you kind of continue to those same experience that you were engaged with in high school, like how much growth can you truly attain? Where if you go out and try new things, to be able to find a community, like you don't know if that potentially could be what you want to do for the rest of your life. You don't know if that's going to be your life's purpose or whatnot. Where I really, really urge students to like shop in a way where like low-key freshman year, just show up to club meetings. Like no one's going to be like, oh, why are they here? Where like in high school, I feel like they'd be like, oh, well, like, why are you here? Where that's just not the mantra in college. And every single student in a higher education institution deserves a sense of belonging and deserves a community. And there's hundreds of staff and students that also want to allow those students to be able to find their community and sense of belonging. But sometimes it's hard. Like, it's not as easy as people make it out to be. And yeah.
Yeah, I like that. So we're going to jump into the second question.
Okay.
So our next question is, express how you lead or why being a leader is important to you.
I think leadership to me wasn't always something that I always had in the forefront of my mind, and I didn't always classify myself as a leader, which I think a lot of people would be skeptical of me saying that, but I'm like a really big introvert, which I think also someone's gonna sit there and be like, no way, she's an introvert. But like all throughout elementary school, all throughout middle school, and even like through a lot of high school, I never was put in a position where I was able to attain those leadership roles. My sister and I oftentimes like were in the same circles, and I could find her getting those leadership roles over me. So I think to me, like the way I view leadership is from the perspective of a follower, which I think a lot of people kind of miss, especially, and I have to bring myself back all the time to that, where who did little Brooke want leading them? And that's kind of the philosophy of how I like to lead. I've been so thankful to be able to find great community throughout middle school, high school, and even college. A lot of those came through just roles where I was just a general member or a participant in something. And the way I like to lead is through building those communities for others. Again, like as an introvert, I understand deeply how daunting it can be to walk into a room when you don't know anyone, right, or you don't have that sense of belonging, and you don't have that thought that you can find a community in that room. Oftentimes I think, especially within student affairs, people only think it's, okay, we need to direct students to community. No, but like we need to make sure that the second they walk in that room, they know that they're meant to be there.
Right.
And so as for like my leadership philosophy, being able to know that not only everyone has access to spaces, but has a voice within those as well is the way I like to lead.
I like that. I came up with like a idea of what you were saying, where you said leading for little Brooke. So every time you lead, you're always leading for little Brooke. That's like lives within you.
Yeah.
There's like so many little Brooks out there. So like you also lead for them too. And that's, I never seen it that way. Like with leadership is a lot of times we, as a leader, you're being selfless, you know, but then again, you can also be a leader for yourself too. And I don't think we talk about that enough at all. So that's cool. I actually never heard it from that perspective.
Yeah, and I think as much that leadership is trying to guide other people to be successful, also claim your own self too, of like, I do really, really great work and I'm worth boundary setting. I'm worth being like, okay, I can't take that on my plate right now. I think all throughout high school, I was a yes girl. I was like, yes, and I'll do it. Even if it was at the expense of myself where, and again, this is not easy. And again, I still don't do it 100% of the time. Again, I barely even do this 50% of the time, but it's that one boundary, like you are one boundary away from being able to truly be able to effectively lead. Where if you don't set those boundaries, like, are you able to truly model what leadership is to others? You know what I mean?
Right.
Because I think oftentimes we're put in such selfless spaces and we're expected to be so selfless, but we're also expected to make sure that we can be successful as human beings too.
Yeah. No, I think like we don't talk about that enough too, and I think we've talked about it a little bit in some of these episodes in different ways, but the experience of burnout that leaders feel, right, especially when they pour so much into other people, because that's a big facet of leadership, right, is leading people, right? That's the whole point of it.
Yeah.
But making sure that you have those healthy boundaries and that self-care in place for you as a leader as well, because at the end of the day, you're a human too, right? You make mistakes, things are going to be challenging, things are going to be tough, and so when you have the responsibility of others kind of in your under your leadership, I guess you could say it in the best way, it can be challenging. And to find that, and I also think something we don't talk about a lot within leadership learning or experiences is the power of introverted leadership, right? That's so effective in so many different ways. And I know there's probably folks out there that say, you know, or I know for a fact some people shy away from leadership because they don't think they're a leader, right? Because maybe they have those introverted tendencies. Again, this might be a hot topic, but in my personal opinion, I think introverts sometimes make the best leaders because they're the best listeners, right? And listening is such a big facet and key to effective leadership. And so finding that and growing, and of course you're gonna have to push yourself, right? Because there are times as leader you're gonna need to speak to a group of people, right? Building that influence. But I also think leadership looks in different ways for different people. It's not always that person who's giving the big speeches or doing those things. And, you know, again, getting to know you better, Brooke. When I first met you, it's like, oh yeah, she's definitely extroverted. But as we've gotten to know each other and have had those conversations outside of the show, I do know that you're an introvert. And same here, right? People are like, bro, again, we've talked about it before, like, I think Mello in this way too. Like, we never would have thought we'd be starting this podcast show, right? Like, that's definitely out of our comfort zone, but it's something that we built through some years of intentional of pushing through that comfort zone. So I think it's so important.
And especially, like, I see it all the time. Like, my kind of niche, whatever you want to call it, is like civic engagement and getting students involved in civic processes, right? And so it's an election year. We all know that. I'm not talking about the election, but as an introvert, it's especially hard to be able to like mobilize people to have these difficult conversations around politics or just like advocacy, saying and using your voice for what matters. Where I think it can be very difficult, especially for introverted leaders, where it's like, oh, but I'm not the one who's going to go out and do the big speech. I'm not the one that's able to door knock. I'm not going to be the one who's able to connect with campus partners. I would argue that the most beneficial thing in regards to civic engagement or service learning or making an impact in whatever way you want to make an impact is through one conversation. If I get one person to vote, I know that one person will get one other person to vote, where it's just one mere conversation. We also do I do a lot of work within the student food pantry, where a lot of people just merely don't know the mission. They don't know what the hours are and stuff like that, where you can make as many flyers as you want, but one meaningful conversation is what truly is going to make that impact. And me as an introverted leader, that makes it a lot more tangible and easier for me to do. So if I just think of like have those small one-time conversations even in passing even can make just as much as an impact as a motivational speech or raising millions of dollars, I would argue.
Yeah. You spitting. Okay. Last question is, what advice would you give to the viewers watching?
I think that's a really big question, Mello. I know that's why that's your favorite question.
Yeah, definitely my favorite question. Because like you got to think about it, like somebody's going to watch it and be like, "Yo, she just cooked."
I mean, leaving with one thing. I'm not a very one nugget person. I feel like I'm kind of just a yapper at the end of the day. But I would say make sure that you know the value that your voice can have. In all of the work that I do with civic engagement, community engagement, volunteering. Also, please, shameless plug, go on to SEMA SHAB. We love to have you. But making sure that you're in spaces where you know the worth of your voice, I think, is the most impactful piece of advice that someone gave me. We live in a world, unfortunately, that in a lot of spaces, people do not know the impact of their voice, and inherently institutions silence people, which is honestly bullshit in my mind, that institutions are built that way to be able to continue to marginalize people and their opinions and their perspectives. So making sure that you know and you center yourself in the fact that your voice has deep, deep, deep rooted power. I have this tattoo. You can't see it, but I have this tattoo right here, and it says "More Voices," and that's why I got that on as a tattoo, because I want my life's work to be to create spaces for people to know where or how to use their voice.
To kind of chime in on that, I think that especially being a student, especially being young and being in America, a lot of times we're told that we don't have a voice, that we're just stay in line, don't bump into anybody, don't break anything, follow orders, don't speak. I don't like that either, because we can change this world and society and even your community by feeling like you have something to say. And I think even with that voice, if I can add to that, finding a way to trust in yourself. I feel like the more you trust in yourself, you can speak how you feel, even if you're wrong. Even if you are wrong, you're still speaking, and you're still speaking your truth. And I feel like a lot of people need to hear people's truth, because someone, little Jimmy in the corner, probably need to hear that. You know, little Brooke in the corner probably needed to hear that. So I strongly do relate with that. Like, you have a voice, you know, and like definitely use it for sure.
And I think within service or just involvement in general, like, I think oftentimes, like, we can get so, and I catch myself doing this all the time, but I get so hyper fixated on the logistics need to be there. We need to be able to get this enterprise car. We need to be able to make sure that the participant manuals are there, where it's like, am I really living back to that previous question, my previous answer, but am I really by doing all these things? Yes, they're important, but like, am I really creating a space where everyone feels included within that? Because again, if you foster spaces where everyone has that sense of belonging and they feel included, that's where their voice can thrive. My role as a leader is to merely provide students the space to be able to use their voice. Whether that's in disrupting systems, whether that's in engaging in meaningful civic conversation, or whether that's merely just making new friends. Like, my job as a leader is to set up spaces for that, to ensure that all voices can be heard.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like, I think that's great advice, right? And adding to a little bit to what you and Mello just touched on is, like, I do see that as well, right? I always like to say I have one of the coolest jobs where I get to work with young adults, whether that's college students, high school students ready to look into college, all those great things. And what I see, or when I ask students, you know, what are they passionate about? What do you want to do? 9 times out of 10, their answer has something to do with making the world a better place for other people, which is super inspiring. That's really cool. But then when you dive a little bit deeper, a lot of times they're like, I don't know how to do that, which is totally okay, right? That's why there's time to do that. But when I look at young people today, this is arguably one of the most creative and most selfless generations we've seen. However, though, it's one of the generations that maybe lacks the most confidence into taking action, right?
And that is a daunting thing to
really
know
is.
that there's youth organizers everywhere. There's people like single-handedly reforming what business looks like in whatever space that you're in as a student. It is so hard to be like, oh my gosh, how can I keep going when one step forward, 3 steps back, one step forward, 3 steps back? And that's a really hard thing. And again, that's why the burnout conversation is so important.
Right.
Because students need to protect themselves and protect their voice to be able to ensure that they can show up for other people as well.
Exactly. And we need that in the world, right? We see it. And so, but talking about that, right? Like, again, like, that's what we always say, like, you young folks watching, or who anyone in general, you matter, right? Your opinion matters, your voice matters, but it's about what you do with it and following up, right? Again, maybe not just talking the talk, but walking the walk, and that's not a bad thing, because it's scary, right? It's scary to put yourself out there, especially in this hyper digitalized world where people are, down each other's throats, right, about opinions and perspectives. And so we don't do enough of that in-person communication and listening to one another, because there is a lot of commonality in one another. But the people that are going to do that and have already done that, and we've seen that, are young people. And to continue to do that, and this world is yours, right? And so we just need to be ready to take that in a perspective. And there's a lot of cool things that I think are going to happen in the future. We just got to do it.
And scream what you believe from the rooftops.
For real.
Like, literally, I think it is such a testament to someone's character if they every single day are like, hey, this is what I'm passionate about, because that's you living your purpose.
Exactly.
And as an introvert, the whole like live your purpose mantra is very daunting, because it has this expectation for what it should be or what it should look like. But yeah, just use your voice, scream from the rooftops, and no matter what happens, just keep going.
Yeah. Passions matter. Well, Brooke, thank you so much for being here. Mello, of course, obviously, as well.
Yes.
Brooke, you can tell a lot of passion about helping people, making this world more just, social issues, all that great stuff. Again, thanks for being here. We love your story and sharing that with us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Y'all are great. I love to yap.
Yeah,
so.
It's a great time. I'm excited to see what this one comes out to. And obviously, you're around on campus still. Like you said, you're a senior, but you'll be here till May. So obviously, students can find you, get connected with you. We'll probably drop some of your information, some stuff about AB in the description below.
Cool.
But yeah, for now, that's it. All we have for you today. So we'll see you next time, and keep leading the way. Take care.